Hello and welcome back to Football Index Moneyball. We have another pick of the day video for you today, and after a pretty decent response to the double pick last week, I'm going to stick with that same method today, so let me know if you preferred the more detailed analysis of a single player in the comments. For this pick, I would say I actually had the hardest time of any of the videos so far in terms of trying to nail down who to go for. I'm selecting from the 22-year-old midfielder category, and there's a lot of great young players in this bracket. But for the PB pick, they're all pretty tightly bunched, so it made it hard to pick a winner. There were a couple I could have gone for, but in the end, the player I picked is a pretty good all-round selection with many ways to profit. Before we get going, if you haven't already, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. If you want to follow me on Twitter, then you can search for @IndexMoneyball, and there are referral links in the description if you want to sign up to Football Index, Football Index Edge and to Football Index Club. There's also a link to my new Patreon page where you can help to support the channel, which gives access to some bonus picks, portfolio reviews and other added benefits. Starting with the premium pick, the player I went for in the end is Ruben Neves, a 22-year-old Portuguese defensive midfielder at Wolves. When it came to making a decision, I just felt that Neves had the most going for him. He's playing in the Prem, he's going to feature in the latter stages of the Europa League, he should go to the Euros, he has the potential for transfer links to a major European team, which could generate potential media. He's likely to feature in the Europa League and the Champions League next season, and as we'll see later, he has great PB record to go along with it. If we look at his graph for the last year, it doesn't have the usual dip that I like to look for, but the one positive I think that I take from this graph is the fact that he's the same price as he was in August of 2019 when the season started. So considering he's had a pretty solid season so far and he's become a fairly regular selection for Portugal with the Euros approaching, I think this is not a bad entry point. There have been links to a host of major clubs in the past, including Man United and Real Madrid, and to be fair, I think he's the type of players that big clubs are going to be looking for, with his creativity and goal threat from defensive midfield. Looking at Neves' transfer marked, he has one trophy so far from Portugal's UEFA Nations League victory in summer, and he has 16 caps for Portugal with no goals. For his career stats, he's played 213 games with 18 goals and 10 assists, which equates to a combined rate of 0.17 per 90. This is a little lower than what I'd like to see, but I think when you add it to his base score and the potential for media, it creates a solid package for dividend potential. Plus the fact that almost all of his stats have come from senior football and he's still young, so there's a good chance he can improve on his goal contributions. For his positional stats, he's played 75% of his games as a DM with around 20% as a CM. I think that this split could be to his advantage when it comes to potential transfers, as he would fit into a number of systems with experience in both defensive and central midfield. Here, I've compiled Neves' stats from the last couple of seasons' PB eligible games. We can see that he has a great set of defensive stats with 0.9 successful tackles, 1.3 clearances and 2 interceptions per game. But the thing that sets him up to be a good PB pick in my opinion is his key passes, shots and total passes with 0.9, 1.2 and 61 respectively. For the profit target analysis, I went for a whole duration of 6 months on this player, which would take us through to mid-August. At this point, Neves should have featured in the Europa, Euros and hopefully some transfer speculation, and Wolves' participation in the European competitions will hopefully be secured if the speculation hasn't appeared. This is also the point where he started to rise prior to the high point at the start of the Prem season this year, so I think it's a good time frame to aim for, and in order to be on track for the 100% goal, I would need to see a 42% rise over the 6 months. I've used the triple dividend scenario method for Neves with 0 dividends in scenario 1, 2p of PB and 1p of IPDs in the second scenario. Neves has 6 potential PB games in the next 30 days for reference, and then 8p in media, 4p in PB and 2p in IPDs for the third scenario, which is working on the basis that he ends up being strongly linked with a transfer in summer. This leaves us with profit target ranges at 21% in the low end through to 61% in the high end of scenario 3. I also think it's worth mentioning that with my premium picks, I'm relying on some growth from the index as a whole. I don't necessarily think that Neves would need to surpass the values of these 3 targets in order to hit our 42% goal, as I think that we'll all see rises over the next 6 months. But I wouldn't be surprised if he was to close the gap between them. I won't go into details of each of the profit targets, but this table has the data I compiled on the 4 players I've used in the profit target analysis. You can see that Neves has the highest PB average of the 3. You can see that Neves has the highest PB average of the 4, and that he's the only one who's going to be playing I won't go into the details of each of the profit targets, but this table has the data I compiled on the 4 players I've used for the profit target analysis. You can see that Neves has the highest PB average of the 4 players, and that he is the only one of these players who is likely to feature in the Euros, late stages Euro comps, and also plays in a PB league. He has the second highest percentage of scores above 150, beaten out only by Van der Beek, but with 3.5 times more PB games under his belt. His goal threat is the main area that's holding him back, but I think that in a better team he could improve this. And with the exception of Van der Beek, Neves is the most likely to see heavy transfer speculation in summer. For my value pick today, I went for Enoch and Mwepu at RB Salzburg. Salzburg are a club who I think everyone loves to watch when it comes to the European games, and with Haaland and Minamino gone now, I think there's room for a couple of their players to see some attention this week when they face off with Frankfurt. One of those players is former pick of the day, Patson Daka, who's been flying recently in anticipation of the Europa League games and a likely summer transfer. But another who I've been watching and holding for a while now, who I feel is in a similar position in terms of a likely summer transfer, is his compatriot Mwepu. Now looking at his 1 year graph, you can see that this is a very different type of player to those that I usually recommend, as he's already up over 200% since June of 2019. But after watching him play a few times and studying the data, I've decided to go out on a limb with this pick as a 6-month hold, hoping for a good run in the Europa League and a move to a PB league in the summer. And again, let me know in the comments what you think of the change in pick type, as I've had a few requests to vary the hold durations, but if you prefer the long-term low-risk holds over this type of pick, then I'd like to hear about it. This one's slightly riskier than usual, but I also think that if things went well, you could see a pretty substantial reward for the shorter hold duration. Looking at Mwepu's transfer marked, he has a few trophies to his name so far, with 2 Austrian League titles, an Austrian Cup and an Under-20s African Cup Championship, which he won with Daka playing for Zambia in 2017. He's now featured for the Zambian senior squad 12 times, scoring 2 goals. For his career stats, he has 83 appearances with 11 goals and 16 assists. This works out to a combined rate of 0.46 per 90, which for a central midfielder is a pretty solid return. For his positional stats, you can see that he's a fairly versatile player with less than 50% of his career games so far played in his preferred central midfield position. He's also featured in every position across the midfield and as a right back. Here, I've compiled a list of Mwepu's stats from the Europa League and Champions League over the last couple of seasons. And this for me was the main factor behind picking Mwepu, as these games are usually against stronger opponents and should give an indication as to how he would perform in a PB league. Looking down the list, there's some fantastic numbers, including 1.6 key passes, 1.3 successful dribbles, 3 successful tackles, and 54 passes per game. Again, it's worth remembering that with these young players, they're still developing the games, so to see these kind of figures gives me a lot of hope for the type of player that Mwepu could develop into, and his ability to transition to a PB league successfully if he got a move. In this table, I have the stats for the players I'm going to use for the profit target analysis. Since Mwepu's only played 8 PB eligible games so far, it's hard to get a real read on his PB history, but it's a positive to see a 230 peak score. This did come in a European game, so without the multiplier it would have been 184, but this is still a solid peak score in such a limited sample size. As although he managed 2 assists in that game, if you were to replace them with a game-winning goal, then he would have been in a real shot with a PB win. Which I know is a bit of a stretch, but I'm just trying to point out the potential for him to take down a PB on a good day. You'll also see that he has the highest goal contribution per 90 of all these players. With him playing in an Austrian league, it would be fair to say that this number's probably overstated in comparison, but I think even with the adjustment that you'd make down, you'd still expect him to be among the top figures here. The other thing I wanted to point out is the average price for all of these 22-year-old midfielders on the index was around 92p, but from the top 40 or so by transfer mark value that I looked at, it was up at £1.14, which represents a 31% increase from Mwepu's price. So now if you look at the profit target analysis results, we have a profit target range of 33% for the low, 63% for the mid, and 79% for the high. Bearing in mind that this doesn't account for any index growth, and considering the stats we just looked at, I think this is a really solid set of targets with a 6-month time frame for this hold. But I'm pretty confident that Mwepu could meet or exceed the 42% we need for the 100% per year target. So that's all I have for you today, but just remember that if you're interested in getting more picks and advice, then you can take a look at my Patreon page, or you can take a look at Football Index Club via the link in the video description below.